Hello, our lovely Girl Awakening listeners. Welcome to 2023. I'm Jo Hendy from the Sacred Sister Project.
I'm Amanda Parker of Mayala Organics.
Come with us as we journey into this week's Awakening episode.
I talk to a spirit. She comes in my dreams. She teaches me lessons.
Good morning.
Here we are.
Yes.
We're in July, so we're kind of full moon. Still the full moon, beautiful energy, and a wonderful guest.
Yes. Yeah.
Yay.
We've had a week full of water with all the rain here on the GT and
It's like
cleansing.
a cleanse.
Yeah. The energy's been a bit of a reset, which is a good feeling. And speaking of like Cancer full moons, well, Sag moving into Cancer full moon and that whole womb energy, we've got the most beautiful guest for you this week. We're going to welcome Briony Goodsell of the Sacred Feminine Collective. Briony is a birth keeper and postpartum doula, yoga teacher, and mother of 3 blessed souls. Briony holds space for women to reawaken their womb wisdom. I'll say that again, womb wisdom, embrace their cycles and reclaim their power. Briony lives on Dharawal country. Thank you for joining us today, beautiful.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay! Yeah. So excited because this is a beautiful area that we're going to talk about today, and we know that a majority of our listeners are women, so it'll be just lovely to hear a little bit about your awakening, but also what you do near the end if we get a chance to. That would be really lovely, because I think it's a powerful time to talk about this area especially.
And the men that are listening are all very beautiful, intuitive, divinely connected to their sacred feminine, as well as we've been hearing from some of their comments. So I think, this is a very powerful space for everybody to be able to connect into at this time when the earth is going through so much transition.
Absolutely. Let's dive in. So, Briony, what was your life like before your awakening, or before you started to wake up?
Yeah, so very different. I almost feel like as a very young child, I had kind of a real awareness or an awakened state. And then slowly as life progresses on, it sort of, got squashed down or really sort of disappeared over time. But I guess I was living a life that was very much not aligned with what I really wanted to be living inside. It was more probably, I think, structured initially by, shaped by my upbringing, by my parents, by more so their influence, I suppose, and what they thought was a good idea for me to be doing with my life. So this is sort of, late teens, early 20s, career-wise and that sort of thing. So I always felt a little bit different to the household that I grew up in. I felt a little bit like the black sheep, but which I'm sure many people can relate to. But I do feel like probably around 15 or so, I sort of had a bit of a rebellious streak happening, but then, sort of got squashed down and I kind of went on and ended up working in the corporate world, just doing sort of PA admin work, and I hadn't really known what I wanted to do, so I sort of just slipped into that with some guidance, by my parents as to, that's a nice, sturdy, steady job you can do, and so I ended up working in that world for quite a few years and really hated it, but it's just what I was doing. So that's the initial kind of start of my life, I guess, was knowing I wasn't really aligned, but I was kind of just doing what I thought was, what you do, just to make ends meet. And
so just hearing that, it sounds like, and this is funny because Russell Brand was just talking about this the other day, a very kind of normal life, if the normal person was looking in, but for you, not so normal. Because, we can all think that we're leading a normal life, but whatever's going on inside and whatever experiences we're having are what's being created, kind of thing. So what was for your teenage years, were you just at school just doing the normal things?
Doing normal things, taking subjects for the HSC that I was guided to do. I did economics, for goodness sake. I think back to that and I'm going, what the hell? That is so far from who I am. But I did it because
I can remember thinking with economics, like literally this just seems like it's a structure that goes round and round in circles endlessly. It doesn't seem to have a purpose.
And I was always really bad at maths as well. So
Yes.
like my brain's not wired in that way. Like, so if you go and do it, I mean, I did okay, but I was never going to do anything with it. But I think from the influence, you know, perspective of my parents, was that was a, you know, a good subject to do, and that it would be useful in life. And so I guess just influenced as you are at that age by what, you know, you get told and what you think is the right thing to do, I guess.
And safe, isn't it? Like it's
Safe,
a safe pathway as well, you know, because, you know, you're probably going to get married and have children, so you don't really need to worry too much.
Very much so. That was still the picture for me, you know. It was it was quite a few years ago. I'm 46, nearly 47 now. So that was the story, you know, was you grow up, you know, you get a job, you get married, you have kids. So that was very much at the forefront of my mind. That was the program. Yeah.
And that we all run through, and we all think it's normal. And this is, I think, what people are, you know, waking up to now. It's like, holy fuck, you know, I've just been living this lie and pushing against something that's you think's normal, but it's so completely not.
Yeah, that's right. And I talk to my daughter now, and she says to me, "Oh, I don't think I'm ever going to get married," and I'm like, you know, you know, you don't have to do that. Like, you do what you want to do. And I'm so open and receptive with my kids like that, because I don't want to tell them what to do or what not to do. I want them to find their own way and to just listen to their internal wisdom rather than what someone else is telling them.
Beautiful. And because that's what that normal and the safe is such a, as we're saying, like carved out pathway for us. But then when we're experiencing all this turmoil, we put it against ourselves and kind of undo ourselves and feel less than, or project it out and kind of get angry at people. And it's like, it's really because we're just not in the right.
Totally.
We can't see that yet.
Yeah. And I mean, I ended up in my late teens, early 20s, I had an eating disorder.
Yeah.
So I was pushing everything down. I was suppressing. I wasn't dealing with stuff that was arising for me. So that's how it manifested for me. It was years of over exercising, you know, eating poorly. Yeah. So that's the way it projected out into my life. Not living aligned.
Like, that's just so beautiful how you said that, because it's like, that's what happens, you know. We go along and we're just doing the normal and program, and then all of a sudden something will happen which will, you know, wake us up a little bit. And it was like an eating disorder, or others it's like, I don't know, depression or anxiety, or
had that too.
Addiction, you know. It's like,
throw that in there.
It's like we have these moments where we get to it's almost like the bottom of the barrel. Which is beautiful, because then we can sort of, I'm going to ask you the next question, which is, how did your awakening begin? Which is a little bit different from the first question, but was that one of the catalysts, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. So when I was going through it, I didn't realize at the time, as most of us don't, you know, that we're having the awakening when we're experiencing the depth of the journey. But for sure, so my healing from that was part of me connecting in with this whole other world. So I got married when I was 24. I wanted to have babies. I didn't have a menstrual cycle. So I was, my body was screaming out at me that, you know, you're underweight, you're over exercising, you're not ready to have a baby. But I really wanted to have a baby. So I went down the path of alternate therapies, which was something really new to me. So it opened up a whole new world to me. So acupuncture and yoga and massage and all of that stuff that I'd never connected with before. So I feel like that was the part of it, because it was the healing for me. But also I then went and started to study. So I just started to study nutrition, which was the massive catalyst for me healing myself. And so that was a huge kind of opening right there.
Isn't it funny? It's like this, you could almost do a blueprint for how a lot of the women that we have on the podcast, their awakening begins. And it usually is from a body, their body actually saying to them, enough's enough.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to break down so you can wake up.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so often that's what happens, is our body is giving us all of these signs that's screaming out to us, but, you know, we're ignoring it. And it takes something else to happen for us to kind of go, oh, hang on a minute. I do need to listen.
And when, you know, I was reading something recently saying about when you're feeling the greatest resistance is often when you're in the greatest position to grow and receive and expand. So if you're if your womb is not speaking, having a little tantrum and saying no, I'm not happy.
That's right.
You know, as a woman, it affects everything, doesn't
Yeah.
It sure does. And just the disconnect that I haven't even really realized until more probably in the last few years how disconnected I really was to my body and to my womb, and how that had really helped start the journey. But the journey was ongoing from then for the next 20 years. It just continues to keep on rolling.
Evolve, exactly. So diving into like healing or wanting to have a baby was the sort that, for a whole new direction for you.
Yeah, it sure was. And it changed everything. So I was studying while I was working at my corporate job, which was amazing. So I was sitting at my desk, just studying away. And back then it wasn't, computer based. It was book based. So I was getting paid to study nutrition and massage, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So really, I made the most of that time while I had it. And then I stepped away from that and started to do what I really wanted to do. And just the alignment that brought to me was just, it was amazing. It was so good to finally be doing what I felt like I wanted to be doing, not what I had to be doing or was told to be doing.
I wonder if the little being that was growing inside of you played a big part in that, like that being coming in.
Yeah.
To open that up in you.
Yeah.
So beautiful, the little connections, and how powerful they are.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you have the journey that you need to have to be the mother to the being that's coming through. So each of your experience, or each of my experiences with my children, brought different lessons and bits of gold and challenges. And
I just love that, hearing your voice change when you talk about sitting at your corporate job but doing something that you love in that space that wasn't your right fit, it's just like
so good.
Joy. It's the joy.
And then everyone's going, Briony's like so productive. She's like getting through the work. She's happy. She's an amazing employee. And going,
bucking the system. It was great.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
So just on that note too, with the awakening beginning, what did you notice? What were some of the things that you noticed happening around you? Any shifts happening, or what were you noticing around you that was happening, or within you that was happening?
Yeah, I feel like I just was really noticing all of the stuff that I'd suppressed was coming up for me to deal with, and stuff that was coming up, I guess, from my childhood, and stuff that was coming up in my relationship that, I'd really used this whole eating disorder as a way of not dealing with all the other stuff. So things started to arise, and I had to face things that I hadn't been facing. So that was a big part of it. But also with my pregnancy journey, I feel like it continued the awakening in the connections with those natural therapies, and with doing some alternate birthing classes and that sort of thing really helped me to awaken myself to even, I guess, what was expected or what was available to us as women when it came to pregnancy and birth. So initially I was booked in with a private obstetrician because that's what I thought, was what you did. And I did a birthing class at around about 24 weeks or so. And it was like an awakening. I was like, oh my God, this is not what I want to be doing. And I just did a complete backflip and sort of said thanks, but no thanks to the OB, and went and found midwifery support, and went through, a totally different model of care. So I just think back to that one moment and that one connection in that class, and that was a game changer for me.
So when you said connection, did you meet somebody, or was it something that you just felt, or was it something they said? Or
it was just, it was going to the classes and being presented with the information, I guess, about private hospital, public hospital midwives, and just really realizing and never understanding before that there was such a stark difference in the type of, I guess, birth that I was maybe more likely to have with one model of care to another, and just really just going, this is not what I want. I don't want to be birthing in a hospital that's got the highest cesarean rate in the state or the country even, maybe. It was just a real wake-up call to me that no, this isn't aligned. And it was a big thing for me as a good girl at 24 weeks actually tell my obstetrician, that I was going to not go with him and go with a different model of care. I mean, I'm sure he didn't really care, reflecting back, but for me at the time, that was a big thing to sort of,
stand in your truth.
So
stand in my truth.
Basically, isn't it? It's not say go against the system, but you're basically stepping into the true part of what birthing is really about, with that whole community of midwifery. And to not have ever realized that was a thing, like to realize, oh my gosh, there's this whole other way, but it doesn't really get talked about as much. I mean, this was 19 years ago. So
so when you made that choice, did everything just start opening up for you? you want to just share a little bit about that? So you made the choice of going with a private, like not a private, but a doula, was it, or was it?
No, well, I did engage a doula because my yoga teacher was a doula. So I engaged a doula. And then, well, I actually engaged her before I went to the classes, and then that unfolded from there. But then, just sort of taking the obstetrician out of the equation, I think it just shifted everything within me. I was excited about birth. All of a sudden, it wasn't this like, ooh, big experience that I was sort of feeling, dread or worry about. I was excited about, going and birthing my baby and what would come out of it, and the challenge, I guess, as a woman.
I was going to say, even the empowerment in you making a choice, and that joy, I can feel it kind of in me now. It's like a feeling of you can do anything when you make a decision that comes from the truth.
Yep. And also taking that empowerment back with my body, because I'd come from years of beating my body up and hating my body, and to now be like growing this baby and feeling like this empowerment already, and looking forward to this experience and that trust, I guess, in my body, and that I hadn't had before. So it was huge. Yeah,
it's a communication, isn't it? Because I think one of, like, when you, as you say, feel this little being inside of you, you get this little relationship that starts to grow, and a communication that's there, and to have that expand into the other parts of your body, and that innate wisdom that's in your being, and how activated it gets on behalf of becoming a mother. This is one of the most amazing experiences to feel and to step into and feel empowered by. So it's like, even though at 24 wanting to become a mother is still I guess, like part of what it starts off as part of that traditional pathway, but actually it's a like the soul going, okay, this is going to open up a whole new part of who he is.
And that was a 4-year journey for me. So I was 28 when I had my first baby, so it was quite a long time as well. And I reflect back, and I know I needed that journey, because if I hadn't have gone on that journey, I wouldn't be who I am now. So it's all part of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You can feel that. It's so beautiful. And it all started from you just making a choice.
Yeah, just exactly. It's just some choices are just, the catalyst
very
for change for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's like changing your own blueprint, because you could have stayed down that path of pleasing everybody else, but at some stage, and your body was letting you know that you had to make a choice that was going to support you and own you.
So how did your partner at the time, did he embrace like where Briony was going as well?
He was okay. He was pretty he was pretty much happy to be guided by what I felt was best.
So he kind of saw you always anyway, basically.
Maybe.
And grew alongside you.
It's my ex-husband now, so it's we did grow. I think my experience is, as for so many women going through and birthing babies, and that it changes you. It changes you in every cell of your body. So but for me, it was makes you stronger. And it felt like a real coming home for me, like a coming back to who I have always been. So even to reflect back to that 15-year-old, that it's almost like I came back to where I was, or who I always knew I was. But had been really disconnected from.
Oh, that's really powerful.
It's traveling the path, isn't it? And just like not knowing where sometimes you've got a light and sometimes you don't have a light, but you're just taking the steps anyway.
That's right. And it's not until you reflect back that it's often the darkest times where the gold really comes from, right? It's when you're challenged, or you've got to dig deeper than you've ever dug. Like, that's where you look back and you're like, wow, that was amazing. It shifted everything.
Hindsight's such a beautiful thing, isn't
it?
So what kind of things, we kind of talked a little bit about this, but what kind of things have happened or are happening to you and for you now? Like, now that you're aware and you're aware of it, your body and why it reacts, and different things are happening around you, and you're becoming more aware of the choices that you're making. What are some of the things that are happening around you or for you?
Yeah, I guess it's like you're attracting the aligned life, and things become more easeful. I mean, things aren't always easy, but it just sort of flows a bit more, and you feel in alignment. And
Yeah.
I mean, that can be everything from just the people that you're connecting with to even just the cycle, like your menstrual cycle, being connected with that, and the wisdom and your power that comes from being in tune with that part of your life as well. It just, you know yourself so much more, and you also know who you are in the world so much more, and you feel more comfortable with that. But that's also probably the stage of life as well. You know, you get more comfortable as you move into the older stages as a woman as well.
Yeah. So you're having, like, just even with your menstrual cycle, as you say, like connecting in with that, like, how is that, like, because having that, how we moving into eating disorders and that disconnection and that space of how we see ourselves and how we feel about ourselves or not feel about ourselves, moving into the menstrual space where you are just becoming so aware of what your body's doing through the month. How was that experience?
Oh, it's amazing and so healing, and I guess part of why I want to talk to everybody about it myself as well, because it's a game changer. And if girls were aware of this stuff that's innately within us but we're disconnected from, but if we had this map, I guess, from a really young age of what your menstrual cycle is, other than just this thing that happens once a month that you've got to deal with or manage or whatever, like, there's so much magic in it. And I think if young girls could have that awareness of that at a young age, it would shift their whole life. And particularly, I guess, as a birth keeper, I see it in the birth space and how women turn up in the birth space. I feel like if there was a lot of stuff going on earlier, then women would be turning up in a much different space than what they are quite often turning up to now, without that awareness or connection with their bodies and their menstrual cycle.
That's so true. I'm just thinking back to even when you said about just going into an obstetrician. I was the same. I went I had a private obstetrician, and it was just, I felt like I was just another person in the waiting room. You know, we were all in there, we were just having a baby, and that was kind of it. And like, that was my knowledge then. I wasn't aware that my body is sacred and, this is all connected and all of that. I was just going to have a baby, and he was just the top guy to deliver a child. And it actually, I get emotional.
It's not a powerful experience. It's going to, like, activate your whole being.
Totally unaware of all of that. And now when I see young women having children now that, they have a doula, like my granddaughter very much was down this path. And it was just so beautiful. And like every part of it, right from not even having, like, I thought the vitamin K injection was just have to have it done. You can't say no, just that's what they do. But no, that she made so many choices, and it was all about her and the baby. And it was just like, so many times I was brought to tears because I was like, not regretful, but because I was unaware back then, but like, God, I wish I had that moment. I would have just made it so much more beautiful, and it's how it's missed, and there's still a lot of people that, just aren't aware of how sacred bringing another person into the world is, and looking after your body and the whole part of the journey, and how special and sacred it is.
It's that real lack of awareness. So I feel like it's been hidden or taken away from us as women.
Well, it's another program, isn't it?
Well, it is. And because women come into their power when they have birth experiences that are women-centered and empowering or whatever, like, it can change women. I mean, it does change women. And so it's almost like there's this disconnect, or the patriarchal culture doesn't want us to know that, this is there for us, because if they do, then it changes us and we become stronger, and we speak up potentially more, and we believe in our bodies, and we take that ownership rather than just handing it over. And that's the thing with birth. Like, we're all conditioned as women to grow up and to do what we're told and to be the good girls. And the birth system is like, that's just the epitome of doing what you're told and not asking questions, when we can push back and we can say no to things, but we're so conditioned to feel like we can't. And most women don't want to cause trouble, like, and there's that, then there's the fear factor of like, well, something will happen to your baby if you don't do this. Like,
that comes in, doesn't it? Like, if you're even thinking about making a decision on your own, but what if, but what if? And it's like, fuck off.
So you've got to be, you've got to be so strong to be able to stand up to that. And you know, when a woman is in labor as well, like you shouldn't be having to defend or push back. Like you just need to be doing what you need to be doing. So
absolutely.
Even be able to have a choice around what position you're in when you're birthing. I mean, a number of women I've seen, you know, of that generation where you're in stirrups and you're on your back and you're pushing your baby uphill,
which is crazy, right?
That was me.
yeah. But you don't know any different, and because we're not surrounded by pregnancy and birth growing up, you know, think about traditional cultures and the kids, they're there when women birth, when sisters or aunties or mums, and it's a normal part of life for them. For us, we're so not connected until it's our turn, and then we're like, oh my God, I've got 6 months or so to like learn, and I mean, where do we go to? It's a lot.
Oh no, there's a great book. I'm joking when I say this. I think everybody got the same book, which was you know, oh God, What to Expect When You're Expecting. I had that book, and I literally, it was my Bible, and I was like, oh God, you know. When I think now, why didn't I have a book on, you know?
This was my first book.
Down to Birth.
Yeah, which is about lives and women telling their birthing stories, which some of them, like, when you're already pregnant, you're thinking, oh my fucking God. And others go, oh, that's the one I want. That's the birthing experience. But oh my goodness, the wisdom and the sharing, like the community, as you're saying there, is that's the glory of community, and you know where the true learning is, because there's so many ways that you can absorb what feels right for you without any kind of level of trying to fit in or critique or control. So much freedom in those sharings of stories, you know, which is what we love about
storytelling. Like we need the stories. So that's a big part of what's missing, I think, in our culture, isn't it? Is the storytelling.
Yes,
the sharing of stories.
I don't know whether it was Kate Reardon who was talking about before, but she was telling us about in Indigenous cultures, they don't put the baby down for, I think it's like, is it 13 weeks or something?
No, it's 6 months often. It's like 40 weeks, something like that.
So like the baby sleeps, but then when it's awake, there's somebody always in the tribe carrying and holding this child, and it just felt so beautiful.
It's beautiful.
And then
as opposed to the Western model, which is like, oh, don't hold the baby too much, you know, you'll spoil them, or like, you know, it's the complete opposite.
Don't let them sleep with you.
It's not safe to let them sleep with you. Like, come on,
you'll roll on it and squash it.
Yeah,
I mean, and so everyone makes a choice on for what their baby, what baby needs and what is right for them. But the rigid lines that you're not supposed to cross, that's the issue.
And it's the fear-based stuff. I think it's using fear as a way to make people do things a certain way, which I have a real problem with.
No, absolutely.
So that 4 years where you went from thinking, okay, now I want to have a child, and then following a path on how to conceive, what kind of community did that take you into? Because you're talking about quite alternative culture of people and ways of thinking.
Yeah, so I think through my studies and through the classes and stuff I was doing, I did connect with other like-minded people, but my very immediate community was still the same. So I did feel a real disconnect, and that really flowed on into my motherhood journey, because I felt like I wanted to mother in a way that I wasn't getting the support to do, because other people were doing things differently, and I was getting advice from people that was different, and I ended up with postpartum depression. I think because I was struggling and I wanted to mother a certain way, but then I was externally trying to reach out for help. I was on the Tresillian helpline every day because I didn't have confidence in myself. I didn't feel connected to my, you know, innate mothering wisdom, and I didn't have, I guess, that nurturing for me that I really needed as a new mother. So it was a real struggle.
That's a tough journey, isn't it? Because I remember exactly, I had quite a few friends who were very much in that thing of like a mother's intuition is, you know, you make choices about things based on what feels right in your heart. And then some people saying, oh, you know, you seem like you're a bit emotional today. Are you sure you haven't got you know, postnatal depression? And, you know, do you think you should see someone? And I'm looking at them thinking, what are you talking about? It's such big areas on either side of how you can be supported in that space. And when you've got so much going on in your day and tiredness and things like that, you're so vulnerable at the same time as you're so strong and powerful. It's quite interesting mix, isn't it?
Definitely. And because as a new mother, you are open and sensitive and vulnerable. I mean, you're newly birthed, right? So you've moved from the maiden into the mother, and you're still finding your feet. So it's a tricky time.
Yeah. This is probably perfect timing too. So did you have to give up anything, like people or things, when you were going through this shift and you could feel it happening? And I know you just talked about the community wasn't really the community you wanted to be a part of, but you kind of were there and in that moment. But was there any people or things that you had to give up when you were going through this?
Yeah, I definitely felt like I pulled away from people. That was definitely a big part of it. And in that way as well, it kind of did form, I guess, that isolation also for me, because I did pull away from people that I couldn't resonate with anymore. And it did bring up feelings of feeling more alone also. So I guess, I just really threw myself into mothering over those next few years and just focused on that. But didn't really have a great, strong, like-minded community that I, see women forming now, and they're doing things a little bit differently.
And were you weren't living where you are now, were you, or not?
No, I wasn't. So I was living up in Cronulla at the time.
Okay.
So,
Okay. And so how did you get through that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I look back and I think, how did I get through that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had your baby at this stage?
So I had my daughter, and then I think just with the postpartum depression, we ended up going to what was it called? It was like a baby support center, and we stayed there for a couple of days, and they just gave me some support with her, and it just shifted everything. I think just not being on my own, just having that support, and then it just really shifted everything for me from there. And I came home, and it all seemed to be okay. I guess you're just doing the best that you can, right, at the time. I reflect back, and I would love to have had a different experience, and to have had, that support, the community, and that sort of thing. But again, it's like, for me, my struggles then gave me the gift to go on and then do what I did. So having those experiences and having the great birth experiences, going on then to do training to do that for other women. So when I was pregnant with my youngest son, Jarrah, who's nearly 15, I was supporting births as a trainee doula. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so that led me down that path to then offer it for other women.
And that's amazing. Like, often people, like, I know I had a midwife for both of my births, and at the time I had my first son, midwives, there was an issue with insurances and things like that, so I wasn't able to have a home birth with my son, but my midwife was with us in hospital, and all the other midwives gave her space to look after us. Beautiful. That was the next best thing. And then a home birth for my second child. But speaking to different people, often their second or third or fourth child, they have that confidence to choose the birth that makes them most happy, like a water birth or a home birth or things like that. And just the I'll say redemption, which is kind of an interesting word, that they receive from that birthing experience changes everything around how they feel around themselves, as what they've been able to give their child, or that pregnancy, or just the happiness that is there.
Can be so healing.
So healing, so powerfully healing. So to be in that space yourself of supporting another woman, but also there to support yourself in that space must have been quite magical.
Yeah, it was. And I think when you go through experiences yourself that change you on such a deep level, you want to be able to help other people have their own experience, but feel that same way, to know that there is another way of doing things, and just to give them that option, I suppose, and that support.
Absolutely. Just for our listeners too, can you explain to us what a doula is?
Yeah, so a doula is a birth support person, so someone that attends births as well as provides support in pregnancy and also postpartum, depending on their scope. But it's not a medical position, so it's different to a midwife. You don't do any checks or blood pressures or anything like that. It's emotional support. It's physical support. So when a woman is in labor, it's doing little bits and pieces to help support a woman, whether it's squeezing her hips or getting her a drink of water, or helping her out of the bath or into the shower, or it's just really doing all the little bits and pieces, making sure the room is dimly lit, maybe putting some aromatherapy on, music. It's just really managing all the little things that can help to make the experience more more supported, I suppose.
So reassuring as well to have somebody think, you know, when the mother's in that zone, to have somebody there taking care of that environment.
Yeah, that's right. And it takes the pressure off partners as well, you know, in that partners, there's a lot of pressure, I think, on them to sort of do all of that stuff. Whereas if you've got a doula or a birth keeper there as well to hold that space, it allows them to just be present and to just do what they need to do rather than doing all the other bits and pieces, as well as supporting the partner as she labours.
And you see them through the pregnancy as well, don't you? So you have
you do. You form a relationship. So you've got that continuity of care, which women won't necessarily have unless they've got, you know, a private midwife or a home birth midwife. Then that's the difference as well. You form a relationship and you have that trust and connection with each other.
Which is something you don't get in the hospital.
No, you don't. You don't unless you've got a private midwife.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
See you later. Go well.
That's it.
Yeah.
So for me now, I mean, I did a lot of years working in the system, in the hospital system, and I've pulled out of doing the hospital support now. Like it's still super important, and there are people out there that are still doing it. But for me, I got to a point where I was feeling burnt out, and I was taking home trauma from what I was actually experiencing with women in the hospital in the last couple of years where I was working there.
Wow.
And so for me, then I sort of switched my focus more to postpartum in-home support and also just home birth support for women. So just sort of, just took that step back and just, I guess shifted where I knew that I needed to focus my energy on.
Yeah. Amazing. So healthy boundaries for you to have continuity.
Yeah, absolutely. Had to sort of shift things.
So the last couple of years, so I remember, so we're going into that, you know, that world upside down.
What's the word for it?
Yeah. So many different ways you can.
You're frozen.
Yeah, so
but that's okay. We're still
talking.
Because I remember, like, there was several groups that set up around midwifery and doulas and birthing, because there were so many women going into birthing in that time that were freaking out about what their hospital experience would be like, whether they'd be allowed in if they weren't taking of certain medications and all that type of thing. You were mentioning that you were in the last couple of years, that, you know, that which is that phase when the world turned upside down, and there was so many challenges around women birthing at that time, because people who were wanting to remain sovereign and remain in the autonomous space were freaking out around whether they'd be allowed into hospitals, what kind of care they'd be able to receive for their birthing experience. And there was quite a few groups, you know, set up around with midwifery, doulas, and to, like, those communities supporting each other, because they were so traumatized around where they could help and couldn't help, as well as the mothers who were pregnant or wanting to conceive or about to give birth. So I can imagine that must have been quite a crazy time for you.
It was, I mean, more so for the women than for me. I mean, it was challenging for me, but to not be able to, I guess, support women in the way that I've always been able to, and to watch women have to go through not having the people that they want to have there with them. I was working with one beautiful couple, and it was a home birth, but she had to transfer, and I couldn't go, the midwife couldn't go with her. So then it was just her and a partner, and just hearing the stories of the women postnatally as well, and not being able to connect in with other women or have the support people that they wanted to have there because they weren't allowed to. It's I think the effects of that are going to be long reaching, to be honest. It was a really hard time to watch.
My daughter-in-law was in that boat where she had a doula. Who we had a dinner where she came over and met the whole family and told us everything she was doing, and it was really beautiful. And I was brought to tears many times. She was her space was so beautiful. And then it came down to have the baby, and she had to go into hospital. And she still had a beautiful experience, but, you know, I don't know whether it was the exact same as what she would have had if, you know, but in hindsight, and lucky for us, she created a wonderful experience in hospital, and she was one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm understanding more and more, and I think it has opened up in the last couple of years more for people like yourself in this area, and more mums becoming more aware.
Definitely.
And more conscious that it is an important time. It's a very important time, not only for the mother but for the child, to be brought into a space that's held.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, women were choosing home birth that may not have had that as something on their radar as well, because of what was going on also. So in that way, it was a positive in that, you know, some women were actually choosing to maybe step out of the space that they wouldn't have thought of doing before.
Yeah,
but
absolutely,
certainly challenging. But yeah, what an awakening time that has been the last couple of years. So I really felt like I was living in line with, you know, what I wanted to be doing, and that I was really kind of awake and aware. And then the last couple of years happened, and it was just like, whoosh,
yeah,
here's another layer of you know, shedding and awakening, and really connecting with who you are and what your purpose is here, and you know, what you want, what you don't want. And so it's just been a really intense but amazing unfolding, I guess.
Yeah, so are you okay to chat on that? So what things were happening? Like, what were you noticing? What were you becoming more aware of?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the thing that that was at the forefront that I had already had awareness of was, I mean, my work is supporting people to step into that ownership of their body, and to do what feels right for them, and body autonomy. And so, I mean, for me, like, that was just already that was already at the forefront of what I do in the world. So to then have this thing happening was just like, there was no way I was ever going to be taking any other stance than what I did. But I think just living in that space of all the crazy stuff that was going on and the limitations, and that was really challenging, but it also made me take another deeper look under things, and sort of see things that I hadn't seen before, and really realize, I suppose, the layers of control and stuff that is actually going on in the world that we feel like is a free society. I think that was really highlighted for me, like, wow, okay, I think I'd sort of sugar-coated stuff a little bit before and tried to just see all the positive stuff and the love and the light and whatever, and then I was confronted with the dark stuff that maybe I'd never wanted to delve into before. So it was quite confronting, but yeah, I guess it's just really helped me to connect even more with who I am and what I'm doing here, and what I want to do and what I don't want to do, I guess.
I love what you said about seeing what you hadn't seen before.
Yeah.
And that is a very powerful phrase in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's like peeling back the glasses almost, like I don't know, and I thought that I was aware of stuff previously, but yeah, it's definitely
it was a big shake up for many, wasn't it? Which, you know, and I've always kind of said was the most amazing thing to happen, you know, on the planet, and we needed that to occur. Even, you know, for some people it was hard, and you know, and it was a struggle, and I feel for those people. There was a lot of other people that, you know, it was like a slap in the face. It was like time to wake up.
Yeah, I agree. And I reflect on it as just one of those times in life where you go down into the underworld, and it's hard and it's uncomfortable, and you want to like get out, almost like, I suppose, the transition stage of labor, right? When you're like,
I was literally thinking that.
I'm done, let me out. But it's
there's no turning back now. It's going to come out.
Yeah, but it's then the reflecting, going, yeah, that was really fucking hard. Yeah. But I'm really glad, and I'm really like proud that I stood where I stood, and that I was, you know, honoring who I am and what I believe in, and that, and so I mean, it's the ripple effects are still there, right? But I mean, it's amazing. Like it was amazing. It was so needed.
So when you stepped out of the hospital system and then started establishing your own practice, like, how was that? Like, did you have community around you in that area to?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's different. So obviously when you're working in the hospital system, you're working with a lot more people, right? So it's, you know, you've got a bigger demand on your services. So there's been a shift in that way as well, but it's also enabling me to focus more on going deeper with women and doing more of the deeper journeying, which is where I really want to head to now. So I want to peel back the layers with people, and doing a lot of work on, you know, sort of looking at the rites of passages. I've been doing some training and some work with the Shamanic School of Womancraft over the last couple of years, and journeying even deeper with them now to be able to sit with women one-on-one and look at their birth story and look at their different rites of passages and how it's showing up for them, and really sort of going deep. So I'm really excited about that aspect of what's unfolding now for me, is being able to help women on that level.
So
Amazing.
in saying that, if someone has had a really bad experience, a birthing experience, with what you do, are you like, is there space to shift that for women?
Yeah,
Good,
so it's
for our listeners to hear this.
It's definitely, yeah. So it's about, we look at all the different rites of passages, including your actual birth into the world, but we look at the experience and we look at, what that experience gifted you, I guess. So, there's always gold to be found, even in our struggles. So, one of the things that Jane Hardwick Collins says, who's my amazing teacher, is that you get the birth experience that you need to be the mother for the baby that you're having, but also to heal whatever it is that's coming up. So it's an opportunity to look at something that's appearing, and it'll keep appearing until you sort of like look at it and heal it. So there's always gold to be found in every experience we have.
Good to know.
And that is in itself kind of takes the experience to a different place, doesn't it? Because
it sure does.
There's so many women, who from, what their birth experience is about, and, prior to birth, as you say, like lack of menstrual cycles and trying to become fertile, or endometriosis or polycystic ovaries, the lead up to actually being able to conceive, and then what, the pregnancy is about, and then post with the birthing experience. There's so much gold in all of that, isn't there? Because
there sure is.
Does that kind of all come into that area where you're now are into?
It does. And also doing the womb work, so the hands-on womb work with women too, because this is where
to ask about that, and you was like, bam.
So that's where we're storing stuff. So we're storing, trauma or undigested emotions. We're storing all of that in our womb. And, so often when women will come to me and there's a real disconnect because they've, tried to sort of like push down whatever's happened, whether it's birth related or other stories of things in their life, or whether it's ancestral trauma maybe that they're holding that's not even theirs, but it's there in their womb. So doing the hands-on womb work and the energetic healing that comes with that is also hugely changing for women when they've got stuff going on in that space as well. So
I'm just thinking about like sexual abuse and how much that comes up now, and how prevalent it is, more and more that women are suppressing it because it's not a great, it's horrible to say, but it's not a great thing to talk about. Like, a lot of people want it because it makes them feel like there's something wrong with them, or they're inadequate, or blah 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 blah. But the trauma in that, it's all kinds.
And that's the same for abortions and for pregnancy losses as well. It's like it's taboo to talk about, but it stays in our womb space. And by journeying with women and talking and going through the different layers, as well as doing the physical hands-on and energetic work, it can be life-changing for them. So
absolutely
amazing.
Wow.
And keeping that life force that is the womb space. The hearth fire's burning, isn't it? Because there's a lot of energy in our womb that may or may not be activated through our lifetime. But
that's right.
So
that's right. And it can all be linked to, physical manifestations of conditions that are appearing as well. Like that sort of stuff is quite often linked to, stuff that's held emotionally in the womb. It's not always necessarily a physical cause, like it might be manifesting as a physical symptom, but there are other things that can be worked on to help with those things also.
I'm thinking too about women who have hysterectomies and things like that, or prolapses, like the work that you're doing around, because a lot of women, when they for whatever reason, the womb is tired and needs to leave, moving on from that experience is also quite a huge time.
It is.
It is often.
And we still have an energetic womb space. Even if a woman has had a hysterectomy, then there is still that energetic womb there that can be worked with as well.
Talk more about that, because I know that'll be really interesting for listeners, because it's quite amazing how many people who
have had that.
And women usually just think, well, I haven't got my womb anymore. I can't connect. I can't do any of the womb work. But you can. You absolutely can. So, it's
still a space there that's still like I said, an energetic space that's holding us.
Do you think there's a disconnect with being a woman when you lose your womb, or like when you have a hysterectomy, or
that's how a woman can feel after? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely, it can. It's interesting because in my red thread, my grandmother and my mother both had hysterectomies around about probably a similar age to me or a little bit older.
Yeah.
And so for me, my red thread healing is doing things differently. So I'm determined, to take a different path. So I'm, doing herbs, I'm doing the womb work. I'm trying to sort of shift that story for my red thread, because it's been quite a common thing for women over the years that if, your womb is causing you problems and if you don't want to have children, then just, we'll just remove it. Whereas, there are other things sometimes, not always, sometimes that can be done to support the journey, particularly the perimenopause, menopause journey, which is when for a lot of women it can become too much, and they just want something to stop what's happening with them.
I wonder too, just as you're saying that, and we're talking about hysterectomies, and I wonder if, like many years ago, and I know there are parts of that help and support the woman for whatever reason, for whatever medical reason.
Yep.
But I'm just wondering, this is just off the cuff, then I wonder if that was part of another program, to disempower a woman by getting rid of her womb.
Well, maybe a thought that I've had myself. Like, I think everything to do with our menstrual cycle, there's so much disempowerment, so much, I mean, it's from the first menarche, the first bleed that we have, like how many women that you talk to have had a really positive, celebrated experience, or there's a lot of shame surrounding it, of feeling that, you've just got to hide it away because it's embarrassing, or there's not a lot of kind of honoring and celebration around the power that our bodies bring to us. It's a very it's a very underlying kind of vibe that's there for us, but it's definitely part of that whole disconnect, I think, that our society, that patriarchal society lays out for women.
And it's so I actually teach it in schools with young girls, with grade 6, grade 5 and grade 6.
So good, yeah.
And it's all around exactly what you were just saying. I bring up periods, and they all go, and I'm like, well, that's just what you've been told. Yeah. But it's actually a magical experience. And it's like literally there might be 1 or 2 out of 70 girls that will be like, yes, my mum talks to me about that. But the rest of them have a program that is, it's horrible. It will ruin you, 4 days, 5 days of your month, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I nearly cry when I hear this, because I'm like, it's such a but the magic and the sacredness and the journey and all of that, in that time, and what we can create in those 5 days or whatever is so powerful. If only, so I'm just planting seeds, I
love it. That's all we can do, is just plant little seeds where we can, and hopefully over time it will shift, because that's where it all starts. Like it's that first experience can really make a massive difference for a young girl if she has a mother which does celebrate it and really talk about it as the magical time that it can be. Then it shifts her perspective of not only her menstrual cycle but her whole body and what it is to be a woman in the world, right?
No, absolutely. Powerful conversation.
2 things are coming to mind. I remember when I first had a bit of spotting with my period wanting to come on, and I was like, I'm still in my pants. I didn't know what it was. I didn't think for a moment it was blood. And then was nothing of it, kind of thing. I was a bit confused, and then had my period, and I was like saying to Mum, I think there's something wrong with me, blah blah. And she's like, oh, okay, and then gave me this 6 series books to read around periods and menstrual cycles and parts of your body and things like that. And that in itself was, I guess it was probably like we didn't have a conversation around it. The books were there for all of that. But it was so empowering though to go, this is parts of my body and this does that, and it was a very beautiful learning experience, even though it probably wasn't a mother-daughter bonding. It was a very powerful time. But also this listening to what we're talking around now, it's another example of how we're sold things that are supposed to give us freedom. Actually put us in a box around, because 1, periods are messy, 2, you don't want to look at your blood, 3, smell, things fragrant, and need to hide things, and instead of using, you're meant to carry on regardless through your period. So you have these things that you can use, so you can show up to work, or you can continue playing sports, and even the pill, how that was very liberating, and just such liberation when that came through.
Another
again,
suppression.
Exactly. And it's trying to make women function like the masculine. So not allowing us to do the ups and downs and, the cyclical living. It's about function on all the time. This is the masculine way. This is how society wants you to show up. No time for resting or going within. It's just, you've got to be on.
Yeah. And I think that was our mothers growing up too.
Yeah.
I, when you say that, I think of my mum straight away. It's like, there's no time to get your period. you know, it's like.
Well, they would have been having their period, but they would have, probably would have been a very uncomfortable time for them to carry on. And
to think, there are some traditional cultures that, still do and did honor like that stage and the magic that, the power that women, when they're bleeding, like they really acknowledge.
I love that. And I actually talk about that in the program, about how the Indian women, they go into the tent.
Yeah,
they just let it, flow for however long, and everybody supports them and stuff. And it's like, imagine if, our parents and our siblings was like, oh, Joe's got a period, let's all get around and support her, it'd be like, they think others, but it's like, that's exactly the way we should be honouring it. And that's
and that flows on to the rest of the cycle as well. So if you are supported in that way and you do flow, are really mindful of where you're at in your cycle, then when you get to that autumn phase or the PMS phase, you're less likely to be like really agitated and irritable, because you've like honored your cycle and you've had the rest when you needed it, and you kind of take that time in line with where you're at. Whereas, we don't normally do that. It's just go, go, go. And of course, when you're in your premenstrual phase, then you start getting cranky at people and feeling all those things, because you haven't, really had the opportunity to honor the cycle and to rest when you need to rest, and to go, well, look, I need to pull back from things because I'm in my premenstrual autumn phase. So I do need to like take it more easy and take time out more.
And the language that you're using, I mean, there's so much language around it, like the, the connection with nature, the moon cycles, just that, the flow, yes.
Yeah.
The flow, there's just so much there that is missing from our experience of ourselves.
Yeah.
When you start to connect, or, any little bit that brings you back into that space can be quite powerful, the way it changes your experience.
So powerful. It's so powerful. And I feel like that's why, we've been disconnected from it, because that does make us feel more powerful as women. And less likely perhaps to be the good girls that just do what we're told. Maybe.
It's funny. I listened to a podcast on a lady who actually works in this area, infertility. And she was saying, imagine getting to the point, well, she was at the point where she knew her cycle so well, down to the ovulating and everything. And that when she knew that the eggs were leaving her ovaries, she would talk to them, and she would be like visualizing them being happy little, eggs, and to say, I love you, floating down the fallopian tube. And she would visualize this whole thing.
Yeah.
And she said then when it was time for her to release, so she would have no pain. She would have, because she had cramps for so long, and she'd read that somebody said if you can get in tune with your cycle and when you're ovulating and all those aspects, that you love every part of it and talk to them and talk to your eggs and all that. It changed her whole cycle, and it was like, it sounded so beautiful when I was listening to it. I was like, oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's very amazing.
There's that movie, I think, from the, early 90s with John Travolta, and I always forget her name, but she's passed now. She's in a beautiful space. Look Who's Talking, and the introduction to that movie is with the spermers, the eggs coming down the canal, and literally like little golden orb floating in bliss, and the little sperma racing to get there. It's the most beautiful illustration of that moment of magic. It's
so beautiful.
So special to think of your body in that way.
That's fine-tuning, isn't it?
Well, it's all coming back to just connecting, isn't it? It's connecting with your body, connecting with your cycles, like going within rather than always looking externally. We're such an expert-based culture, right? We always have to ask the expert, ask someone else. We don't ever just kind of go, well, hang on a minute, it's my body. I know my body really better than anyone else. Like, what is my body telling me?
That's wild. No, I love what you're talking about and where you're going. And I think even in this day and age, specifically now, I think we are looking and feeling more internal at what we're feeling.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not, I think we're not asking as much. I think we're feeling a lot more, and we're finding the answers within. And part of that is what you're talking about, you know, listening more to what our body needs, and having the answers, because our body knows, you know, it's such an incredible vessel. We know what we want and what we need, you know.
That's right.
So how has this all been for you? Like, Briony, like, do you feel like, because like you're 46, 47, your children ages, do you feel like this journey of where you're serving people life and doing something that fulfills you, how has that kind of been like for your body, for your connection into the world? Like, where's it shifted you into?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. I mean, in terms of where I'm at with coming into the perimenopausal phase for myself, I definitely feel I'm approaching it with excitement, almost kind of like I had really great birth experiences, but I also didn't have a real awareness of the rites of passage and how much of an impact they would have on my life. So I had great experiences, but now I'm really excited to be faced with this sometimes challenging phase of perimenopause with all of the awareness, and like, this is a rite of passage, and I'm changing and I'm transforming, because I am shifting. Like, every day I'm feeling like, who am I? What am I doing? So, you know, I've felt very sure of who I am for a long time, but this transformative stage of perimenopause is throwing everything up in the air. It's like everything is kind of going back into that jumbled, like, where am I going to land? What am I doing next? So it's an interesting stage. It's a very interesting stage. I mean, I love what I do. I love the work that I do with women in the world. So that certainly isn't going to shift, but it's a lot of internal stuff, I think, happening at this phase of life.
Yeah, I keep getting it's like a deeper listening, isn't it? It's like a deeper listening. It's like, and I
feel like your body is like, my cycles have always been quite easy, but now I'm finding that they're gaining my attention a lot more, because I am sometimes having heavier bleeds, and I'm sometimes getting more discomfort. So it's making me bring my attention inwards to my body and what's happening. Whereas in the past, I've been able to just kind of like be aware of it, but it hasn't kind of demanded as much attention. So
and be more externalized in your focus is like to be able to honor that calling to come back into internal part of Briony and what is happening in there. This transition.
And just with everything I think that's happened in the last few years as well, it's just like that's exacerbating all of the internal stuff as well, of like really questioning everything, and, you know, what is my purpose and what are we here for? And
and like you said earlier, not looking for the answers outside of yourself.
Knowing that we've got it within us, and we just need to stop and listen a lot of the time.
But and you're speaking about the work that you're doing with Jane Harwood-Collins. I mean, that's a powerful community to be a part of as well, isn't it? So I guess you've aligned yourself with some very, like, a great reflection as a community in that space and where you want to be.
It's an amazing community. And I remember when Jane first started offering what she offers, it was 15 years ago, because I had a newborn, and at the time I remember looking at it going, oh my gosh, it sounds amazing, and knowing that it wasn't the time of life for me. So it's really cool now to be at this next sort of phase and to be doing the work in that community, and to see, I guess, all the little seeds. We're all little seeds, I suppose. We're doing the work, we do the internal journeying, and then we, like, you know, do the other stuff, and we're out there sort of planting our seeds. But it's so beautiful, the healed feminine connection, the healed sisterhood, you know, it's such a beautiful space to be in.
It just feels so sacred and so honoring the feminine, and, you know, and the male as well, you know. It's like,
but God's strong, because I mean, Jane is just a formidable force, isn't she? But in the most heart-centered space, like, she leaps out at you. Amazing.
She does, and she's so down to earth and grounded, and like, we'll get in there and do the work like the rest of us when there's things to be done. Like, she really is so inspiring, really inspiring.
That's so beautiful. So just on the next question, we've got only 2 more questions left. So what do you do now to support yourself for staying in the moment?
So I do a lot of nature time. That's probably my biggest go-to.
Beautiful.
I've got a really beautiful reserve part up the back on the escarpment where I live. So I spend a lot of time just wandering up there, sometimes barefoot to get the extra grounding in with the earth, and just spending time just connecting with nature. Otherwise it'll be down at the beach, walking my dog and just sort of getting the feet in the earth and just remembering, I guess, the importance of just being, just taking that time out and just connecting with nature, and then just gentle movement of the body. So just gentle yoga practice, just really listening each day to what my body's telling me, and just supporting myself with herbal teas and good food, and just slowing down a lot. I think slowing down, which is, I guess, the gift as well of these last couple of years, is it has brought a slower pace along with it too, which is nice.
That's so beautiful.
Finding more, again, I guess, that external rhythm of the slowing down and with going with what feels right, as opposed to the doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you're just listening to you talking about your yoga practice, like, is that an active part of what you do with your pregnant mums and
so I run workshops. So I run prenatal courses and postnatal stuff as well for the mums. It's funny because my yoga practice, I suppose, has really shifted over the years. I feel a lot more like it's a lot more feminine now. So it's much more going with the flow and using the moons and using the different cycle of where you're at with your menstrual cycle. And it's a much more feminine based practice, reflecting back, I guess, on when I did my yoga teacher training. And it is quite masculine focused. It's very much rigid and certain postures and whereas what I feel like I'm practicing now, which is more intuitive as well, is just flowing and listening to your body and reminding them, and to really just check in with where you're at, not what you have to be doing or what the teacher's showing you. It's about you really going within and being the guide for your own practice in that way.
Just allowing, allowing, so beautiful. So beautiful.
And I guess that's like the true meaning of yoga as well, isn't it? Because it is a multidisciplinary practice, mind, body, emotions, meditation, all different aspects of like everything we do in our day is an expression of yoga. So we spot, really embracing the true nature by allowing yourself that freedom.
And it's not about the external, what the posture looks like, from the outside, or pushing yourself if something doesn't feel right. It's like, just listen to your body. Like if you want to curl up in shavasana or child's pose, like do it. Like I will always say that to women, like just do what you need to do.
And most women actually just need that. That's why they go there, I think. Like they just want to have that. They hang for the shavasana. That's me.
That's right. Exactly.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're actually down to our last question. It's been really beautiful talking to you. It's a really calm space. You've got a beautiful, really calm, still. I can see why women would love to be with you going through pregnancy.
Experience.
Absolutely. And we have talked a little bit about this next question throughout the podcast, but how do you see the world now?
How do I see the world now? Oh, gosh, that's a big question to say for the last one. Oh. Everyone gets stumped on me.
No, but go with
I don't know. I feel like I see the world in a couple of different layers now, whereas I just saw the world in one way before, whereas now I feel like it's sort of, I see different layers of it. And I feel like it's kind of choosing where you want to put your energy and choosing who you want to sort of spend your time with, and what you want to kind of just acknowledge is there but not actually engage in. So I see the world very differently than what I would have 3 years ago now. I mean, it's a beautiful place. It's just some ugly stuff going on, but I feel like there's a big shift, like you mentioned before. I feel like what's happened in these last few years needed to happen, and that there's a real change in vibration. So it's almost like it's a real underground kind of like vibration that I can feel shifting, and I think people are waking up, and that's exciting. That's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. And the Vesca Pixie, or is that what Vesca Pisca?
I like the pixie part. It sounded good.
It's basically a vessel.
It's where the two ones are like, they were like this for a long time. So there was like an old earth, and then in the middle was kind of like the last couple of years, and then there's this over here, and I feel like we're kind of now coming into this part where
there's still this little overlap part with the
Yep.
a little bit,
two
yeah.
yeah.
So I'm hearing what you're saying. It's like
there's an underlying excitement that I can feel sometimes, like
Yes.
sitting here talking to you two. It's like
Yes.
I get that, like the goosebumps kind of like,
yeah,
but then other days, sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, like everything
Yes.
feels quite heavy, but knowing
Yeah.
that that's all part of the shift, right? It's what's
absolutely.
going on.
They're the
That's why
days
we're
we need
here
to
at this time.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to like be able to embrace those days and not kind of give up, because it's almost like a little bit of a healing process, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm just
Sure
excited
is.
that
It
you're
sure is.
I'm excited about all those women and babies that get to be in your company and have you as a part of how the little beings come into this world.
Oh, they're just magic, right? They are pure magic. And if we can give them a more gentle landing, then it's better for the earth, right? Like they're the change bringers. Honestly, like it makes such a difference. Like your birth experience, it does matter, you know, it does matter. And these little beings coming through, like if we can give them the best landing possible, then it's awesome.
It makes me feel sad because I had, for my first boy who just turned 25 last week, it wasn't a nice experience at all.
There was a lot of
I feel sad for him.
Because
it wasn't as beautiful as I would like it to be now. But
listeners,
I hear you.
This is why people like Briony is so important, because it's not just the pregnancy and the birthing, it's afterwards, isn't it? Because
absolutely.
We always
each of us have our journey that we need to have as well, like to be who we need to be in the world. So there's, you know, it's beautiful to acknowledge the grief that's there, but it's also the shaping of that little spirit and what his purpose is here on earth.
He's amazing.
He's not little, he's a big spirit. That's kind of the whole reason why I was like he's an incredible soul.
But also being able to speak that and to hear and to listen, like that's important, because it does matter. Like it matters. It's not just like, oh well, it doesn't matter, you just got a healthy baby, it's fine, move on. It's like your experience matters. You know? And it's important to talk.
And that's another, you know, like we've all been through so much and we're all growing and evolving very quickly. But there's parts, I think, like this that I go, well, that was 25 years ago, you know.
It's like yesterday.
I'm fine, there's worse people off, or, you know, it's like, but no, I freaking had I had an amazing pregnancy, but my birth was like crazy. And I just literally, I went into hospital, had a horrible birth, and I left.
With a baby. You did take the baby home.
There was
and that's a hard start to motherhood, right? When you've got that experience, and then you've got to just go straight into mothering a little person. It's a lot.
So I'm feeling now, 25 years later, how amazing it would have been to have somebody there say, you know, oh, how are you going? You know, how's whatever.
Well, the midwife that I had, we're going to go into sessions for my second birth. She had 9 children herself, and birthed the last 2 that she had by herself.
Oh wow.
Because I don't think physically she was in a location where she could access anyone, but she just decided that she knew what to do, so she would go with that.
It's
and you know, it says so many gifts and what you share. I think that just go beyond
the mainstream.
I
was just thinking about when you said, look, I'm not trained, or I'm not what do you call it, medically trained. Medically trained. I'm thinking I would prefer to have you in the room solely with the space that you hold and me give birth than have 25 medically trained people around me. I think the whole experience, and there's nothing against all of that, because I'm for somebody that may need that experience, but it's like you don't need to be medically trained to be able to do that, in my opinion.
And that's the thing, I think. Birth has become so overly medicalized that of course sometimes medical stuff is needed, absolutely. But it's like it's flipped the whole other way, that every woman needs medical support and stuff, even when everything's perfectly fine, she's healthy, there's everything. Like that's the thing, I think, is we've swung too much in the opposite direction.
when you think of all those tribes and all that years and years ago that were just giving birth.
Yeah.
You know.
And I mean, it's big business, right? There's a lot of money in birth.
Yeah.
A lot of money in epidurals and everything else too. So anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
I was going to say, don't take the dark hole there.
Yeah, we're not going there today.
I think the missing link is like what you do, Briony, is like the communication on a mental, emotional, and physical level.
Yeah.
So that the journey is holistically supported.
Yes.
And then the woman is in her true seat of power. And whether you need support medically or not through the birth experience, it still remains a holistic process.
Yeah. And it's how you're made to feel and how you're treated is so important.
Yeah.
So important. And it's not just about the physical birth of a baby, right? It's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. Yeah, it's life force. And when you're holding the space as a birth keeper or a doula or whatever, you're having that deeper awareness and you're holding that space for the woman. Like you're not, it's not just about the physical birth. It's about her and her spirit and supporting that and holding her and seeing her.
Yeah.
So it makes so much difference.
And you mentioned before about the red line, how like that whole thread that comes through the lineage of matriarchy. I mean, it's an honoring system as well too, isn't it? Of those who've been before and those who are yet to come.
Wow.
Sure is. It's important. It's important stuff.
It sure is. Oh, it's been so beautiful speaking with you. I feel like I want to have a period.
Yeah, so much magic.
So funny.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to share with us, just like around where you're sitting in your space of what you do and what you wish?
Oh, look, not really. Just like I'm just so grateful to have, podcasts like yours so that women can show up and be authentic as they are and other women can listen and connect in and feel connected and to not feel alone, I suppose, if they're thinking a little bit or feeling a little bit differently to the mainstream. It's beautiful to have this as an option for women to connect in and hear other people's stories. It's beautiful.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Welcome.
See you.
I see you too. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, and we'll pop your Insta handle on the bottom of this podcast.
Yes,
and any other info that we have will pop on there as well. But thank you so much for sharing
thank
who you are and what you do and your awakening journey with us.
Thank you both. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening, and remember, all links to our guest are in the notes. Leave us a comment here or message us on Instagram how our guest today connected with you, or perhaps something you wish to share. A special thank you to the blissful Ksenia Luki for our theme song. Joe and I will be with you next week.
Bye.
Ciao.
Boy, does she sing. Her voice sways like a hummingbird, flies like a shooting star. She whispers, you were never born, so you will never